Ace and John didn't know it, but Christian wasn't just being playful. He was developing the skills a lion needs to survive in the wild.
A lot of the play that young cubs will do with one another when they will practice stalking and jumping on one another and play fighting is all part of learning how to hunt. But there is a learnt aspect, and that learnt aspect is often reinforced by play.
Christian's lion instincts were surfacing, but after 4 months being raised by Ace and John, he had clearly formed a strong bond with them.
He was dependent on us, but he loved us back as well. We were the closest things to him.
But Christian had such a personality that he was sort of another person in their lives, wasn't he?
He would always leap in, put his arms around them. They would put their arms around him.
He was affectionate with us. He would jump up on us or sit on us, or he wanted to be close to us, or like a good cat, if you were reading a newspaper on the telephone, he'd want to sit on you.
It was just like having a child, and it was like John and Ace were his parents, you know. He just adored them. It's the way he looked at them. You can see the love in his eyes.
Christian was now 8 months old and weighed 70 kilos. Ace and John realised that his size was becoming a problem.
Christian really was getting too big, and very quickly was really too big to bundle up if we were worried about a situation, just to hold him in our arms, and we were worried what would happen next. As he grew bigger, he was really capable of inflicting real damage.
Once, I think I'd been out for the evening and I called him, you know, like we used to, stand at the top of the stairs and call him, and he ran up the stairs to put his hands on my shoulders like he does, and he slipped on the top step and put his claws out and ripped my whole dress off the front of me. My beaver dress, my best beaver dress. But he didn't hurt me. I mean, I didn't have a claw mark or anything, it's just the whole dress went off.
Another incident brought home to Ace and John that Christian was a predator, hardwired for aggression.
One day he found a fur belt had dropped off some customer's coat in the shop, and he picked it up, and I went to pull it away from him. And for the first time he flattened his ears and snarled in a very, very nasty way, frightening me and both of us. John came then, but signalling very clearly, I'm having this, don't try and take it away from me.
Christian's rapid growth was also putting his exercise regime in peril.
Towards the end, as Christian got larger, it was becoming a little difficult because of the visitors in the churchyard. And I think my father felt a little bit uncomfortable, the larger the lion got, how long this could continue for, and suggested that it might have to stop.
So we knew that the time was coming where we had to accept that London was no longer going to be his home.
Christian needed a new home. But the options were unappealing. Ace and John rejected circuses and zoos. They didn't want him living in captivity like his parents.
We'd just become so fond of him, you know, we just knew that we couldn't betray him by putting him in a zoo. We just couldn't do that for Christian. We thought, we've got to find something. What was it going to be? We didn't know.
Ace and John were getting desperate, but then an extraordinary chance encounter changed everything. Film stars Bill Travers and Virginia McKenna visited the Kings Road furniture shop and came face to face with Christian. Ace and John seized the moment.
When they met us, I think they thought, what about, is there a chance here? Because they said to Bill, do you think you could help us to get Christian, you know, a better future? And he said, would you agree to let Christian go back to the wild?
Joy Adamson's well-known story of life with the lions has now been brought to the screen. It was chosen for the Royal Film performance in London.
Travers and McKenna had starred in a 60s box office hit Born Free 4 years earlier. It told the true story of an orphaned lion cub, Elsa, who was successfully reintroduced into the wild. It had turned them into passionate lion conservationists, and they were still in touch with the man whose work had inspired the film. George Adamson was a lion expert who hand-reared orphan cubs like Elsa, preparing them for life in the wild. It was controversial work. Some experts said that the lion's familiarity with humans in the camp could never be risk-free. But for John and Ace, Adamson represented Christian's best chance of freedom.
So they contacted George Adamson, and he then said, what an exciting challenge to be able to try, it did stress try, and rehabilitate a fifth-generation zoo-bred lion. Because Elsa was born in Africa. Elsa knew the smells of Africa. Elsa knew what a waterbuck looked like. Christian didn't.
It was the perfect solution. We were just thrilled. Anything to avoid a safer, longer life in confinement, in cages. So we didn't hesitate for a moment.
But there was a major stumbling block. They needed permission from the Kenyan government to import Christian. Negotiations would be complex and lengthy.
There was a huge amount of red tape and, of course, some reaction in Kenya from why would we want to bring basically another predator into our country? We've got enough lions already.
The rapidly growing Christian needed somewhere bigger to live, and fast. Virginia and Bill offered a lifeline. Christian could stay at their country home in Dorking, Surrey, until the Kenyans gave their verdict.
It was marvellous when we first got there. You know, he jumped out and then just didn't take off, but just him walking without us guiding him, trying to lead him or control him. Scared by the scarecrow in their garden. And again, he didn't run off, he just would go ahead and investigate and then come back to us for reassurance.
Virginia and Bill built Christian a huge secure compound in their garden. It was the closest he had ever been to the wild.
Christian, he was obviously delighted when he moved to the country. You know, it was a different environment, and he loved his space there.
Ace and John gave up their jobs and moved into a caravan beside the compound. They knew these would be the last weeks they would have with Christian, and they wanted to make the most of every second.
When we were in the country, it never for a moment crossed our minds that we would leave him there without us being with him.
Christian was our responsibility. We didn't want him to feel abandoned. That was part of our deal with him.
It was such a pleasure to have more time with him. And yes, one did grow even closer to him and get to know him even better.
They were always trying to think of ways to keep him interested. That was stimulating, you know, so he didn't get fed up and bored. We took him very early one morning to go to West Wittering and run on the beach with balloons. When he dipped his paw in the sea and hated it, you see, oh, God, I don't like this, he went off. So we were all, I think I remember my husband was rushing along, waving a balloon in the air or something, because we brought all these balloons down to play with. But Christian didn't want to, he just wanted to race. He just raced on the beach. And we all puffed and blew after him, you know, and then we all flopped into the sand.
4 weeks after Christian's move to Dorking, there was still no word from the Kenyan government. And the delay meant that the 10-month-old Christian was outgrowing his compound.